Happy Friday the 13th, everybody out there who enjoys the day. I personally, being a big scary movie fan, it's always a good time to ring in Friday the 13th. You know what I mean? But on top of that, horror movies aside, I've been thinking Friday the 13th could possibly be when we get a more consistent signal at maybe an attempt at developing our first named storm. And you take a look, this is going to be the GFS. The GFS, among many of our other global models, are indicating, despite how little real estate it has time to play with over the southwestern Gulf, there could be an attempt at trying to develop a bit of a tropical spin out there. Now, granted, you can see, given the projection there, I've added the arrows for your situational awareness. This is going to stay far away from Central Florida. It will have no impact on our weather whatsoever. However, this would be the opening, kind of like the first act to our 2025 hurricane season. And I will add, almost to the exact day is when we saw our first named storm last year. And it hugged the Bay of Campeche, eastern coastline of Mexico, just like this feature could possibly do in very similar fashion. And that's all thanks to a very dominant subtropical high pressure entrenched across the greater Atlantic waters. And an extension of that is starting to bully our rain chances down ever so slightly here in Central Florida as it tries to extend further towards the west. Now, there are some features in the pattern that could break down the westernmost extent of that, allowing for this bubble of energy to come up over open water, try to fester a little bit. Water temperatures are anywhere between 29 to 31 degrees Charlie in that area, well within the 80-degree Fahrenheit threshold you need for tropical development. So we're going to see. National Hurricane Center hasn't done anything with this just yet. We're going to be watching over the weekend, especially if these trends do continue to hold. I haven't aired this out to you all just yet because I'm not one to get model happy. We got to run. It's happening. No, I wanted to build some continuity, as it's called. And we've had a number of runs from not only the GFS, the Canadian model, the German model, the European AI model, even the Korean model, and the Australian, the Navy model. We have a lot of our computer models pointing. They're pinpointing this spot for us to monitor over the next several days. Now, some of you have probably realized hurricane season seems like it's off to a very slow start. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Let me take you full screen here really quick. If you look, we're only into June 13th. We've barely scratched the surface of the hurricane season. Last season, we saw a lot of early activity. We had Alberto in pretty much the same spot as this potential feature could try to show itself. We had Beryl, the anomaly and the record setter that was. Then we had Chris. Then we finally had a break until Debbie showed itself and made landfall in northern portions of the Florida Peninsula, the Big Bend area, as a Category 1 hurricane. So to tell you the truth, despite any speculation you may have heard online or on other weather sources, whether they're official or non-official, this is pretty normal. If you look at the chart here, based on data we have all the way back to 1851, so a decent chunk of time, normally June, July, and it isn't until mid-August, right around the 13th of August, as a matter of fact, do things start to go on that upward ascension, kind of like you're riding the roller coaster ride before we plummet back down on the backside as we get closer to the Halloween time in October. So definitely normal out there for us to see a bit of, I wouldn't even say a delayed start, but just a slow to start. We're kind of gathering the pieces, looking at the puzzle, setting the chessboard, if you will, before the pieces actually begin to move. And on top of that, this is as typical as it could possibly get. You take a look at your tropical breeding grounds, and if you notice, from the Western Caribbean near the Yucatan Channel, the southwest portion of the Gulf, and then up the eastern seaboard, very similar to that first area of interest we had a couple weeks back that never really did quite much off of our northeast coastline. This is where we typically watch. So to get a storm this far into June makes a lot of sense. We still have the MJO hanging around, lots of moisture out there. The Saharan air layer is not an issue. I've been looking at that as well. Wind shear should start to come down in that general area a little bit as we go over the next week or so. So now we're back in the waiting game. National Hurricane Center has the ball. Let's see if they bite. Let's see if they don't. I would be very interested to see if we make it through this weekend and these computer model trends hold, if we don't get an outlook with the infamous yellow blip down there in the Bay of Campeche.